I'd say the one thing that I utilize the most right now is the lessons that we learned that revolve around I call it the power of the spoken word. The things that we say, how the things that we say impact our direction in life and the outcome of our situations. And one of the earliest times I remember seeing this work was in first phase. My best friend came to me one day and he said, "Chad, I don't think I'm good enough to make it through this training anymore." And, I had known prior to that statement that he had been having some thoughts of doubt. But when he kept those thoughts within his own head, he was able to continue from day to day. But as soon as he came to me that morning and spoke it out loud, that statement, he created that reality, it became real. It crushed him, man. He was crushed by that single statement. I don't think I'm good enough. And shortly after he made that statement, he went and quit. And I thought, this guy, my buddy, he was completely physically capable of doing everything that we had to do that day and every single day until graduation. But those words crushed him, man.
It was like the Rubicon. Once he crossed that, there's no return. Once you give voice to whatever it is, whatever demon is swimming around in your head, it gives it a power that you can't take back.
There's something about the spoken word, man. And I think the written word has similar and equal power, but a lot of my lessons revolve around that spoken word, and now that lesson has transferred into ultra running. And I've seen that power of the spoken word push people beyond their conceived limits.
So give me an example of practicing that.
So I can give you an example of how we practice it at a race a few months ago. We were doing a last man standing race.
Right.
So
is this the one with Jesse?
No, this was one that I didn't do the one with Jesse. I had done one a few months before. So I became acquainted with a young man named Thomas. Thomas had never ran more than a 10K race before, so it's about 6 miles. And me and Thomas kind of partnered up, and I thought I'm gonna mentor Thomas. And it starts to get, we had made it to like 15 hours.
So is it one of those where you do a loop and you get a break and you have to do it in a certain amount of time? You just keep going until there's only one person left.
Yeah. So it's 4.16 miles every hour on the hour until one man's left.
Is this the race that you created?
We actually hosted a race that was a similar format, but this was one I was actually competing in.
Okay.
So Thomas, the sun starts to set, and I look in his eyes, and I can tell he's hurting bad, man. He's almost done. And I told Thomas, I said, "Thomas, I want you to do something for me." I said, "I want you to just say, 'I will never quit.'" And Thomas looks over at me and he says, "Well, I'll never quit." And I'm like, "No, man, I want you to yell it out loud and let everyone around here know that you will never quit." And I think Thomas kind of thought that it was cocky, but it wasn't about being cocky. It was about us creating this confidence and this reality for ourselves through the words that we spoke. So Thomas yelled, "I will never quit." And then throughout the rest of that night, every time I'd see Thomas, we'd yell back and forth to each other, "I'll never quit." Thomas ran over 100 miles that day. So from a 10K, he ran over 100 miles.
Do you know what his goal was going into
100 miles.
Oh, it was to run 100 miles.
It was 100 miles. But, we had also made a pact with each other that, and I had made this for myself, but I brought Thomas on board that we wouldn't die in the chair, during that race that we would die out on the race course when our time came, battling for every step. So on Thomas's last lap, he reached his goal, and he said, he's sitting in his chair. He said, "Brother Chad," he said, "I got my 100 miles, man. I'm good." And I said, "No, Thomas, we said we're not dying in the chair, brother." So Thomas rose up out of the chair, man, out of that.
But he did speak those words out loud. He now you got to overcome that.
Yeah, he overcame it. But he had reached his goal essentially. He had every right to be there, but he had just had he forgot about don't die in the chair, you know. And so Thomas rises up and comes back out, toes the line again, and he's running with me, and essentially waiting for my permission to end.
Right.
And we get out about 300 yards from the start line, and I say, "All right, Thomas, you did it, brother." and then he
didn't do it in the chair.
The start line, man.
You could have withheld that permission. And just see how much further this guy's gonna go.
I was so proud of him, though, man. It was amazing.
So what do you make of that? Like, what is that about? Like, how is it like that the spoken word can carry that kind of power?
It's and I don't know. I don't know what. For me, something in a thought that's in your head, it's just a thought. It's not tangible to anyone else except for you. But when you speak something out loud, it actually becomes something real, something that can be measured. So it becomes something that's part of this reality that we live in. And I feel like that's what gives it the power of the spoken word. I feel like that's why it's so powerful, because as a thought, it's essentially, it's not part of this reality that we're living in, but as soon as you speak it, it becomes real.
Right.
That's where I find the power at, man.
So the practical application of that, or the practice of it, is to be very measured or judicious in what comes out of your mouth, and to be careful that to be mindful of the words that you speak, such that whatever is coming out of your mouth is a positive affirmation that underscores the goal that you're trying to achieve.
I think you have to be constantly conscious of it, man, and that's something I practice in my own life, and I take it kind of. Some people would think to the extreme. I don't curse. I'm a Christian, but that's not a Christian thing. It's because none of those words in and of themselves have a positive meaning. So I try to stay constantly in control of my rudder. I look at my tongue as my rudder.
Yeah. Do you ever fuck that up?
Oh yeah. I mean, everybody's going to make mistakes, man, for sure. But a big thing, Rich, is to be especially aware of your rudder during times of adversity.
Right.
Because that's when it really matters. When you're in the struggle, when you're in the furnace of adversity, that's when you have to be really conscious of the things that you're saying.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
Back to buds, was there ever a breaking moment for you, or were you just and was this kind of perspective taught to you, or this was an intuitive thing that you stumbled upon as a survival mechanism to get through this?
So it wasn't taught. I think it was an intuitive thing, but I think that it's also developed now through, as I get older and I continue to see it work, and I teach these skills to other people, and then I hear their testimonies when they come back and say, "Oh my gosh, I was in this terrible situation or this terrible moment, and I just spoke life into my situation, and it changed the direction, it changed the outcome." Those things all strengthen my faith in these actual tools that we have.
Right.
In Buds, there was no breaking point for me, though. There was never a time that I thought about quitting. Never a single moment. I never looked toward the bell. And again, that's not because I'm any tougher than anyone else, man, but it's because I had been through a furnace of adversity prior to even towing the line. So I had quite a bit invested.
Right. So you get through that, and then what was your deployment like? Like, what was the experience of actually being a Navy SEAL?
So, I did multiple deployments over the course of the 12 years that I was active duty. As far as the experience of being a Navy SEAL, man, it's not as sexy as you would think. I'll tell you, the best part about being a Navy SEAL is you get to go to work with heroes every single day. You get to go to work with these men that are just, have integrity. These men that just will not quit. And you get to be surrounded by those people every day. That was the best part for me of actually being in the SEAL teams. As far as the day-to-day job, it's a job, man.
Yeah.
You have a mission every day, whether it's training or actual mission, and you're a professional. You're an operator, and you get the job done. And it's not nobody there is doing it for glory. At least not. There may be your oddball every now and then that's why they do it. But your real operators are just there to get a job done that needs to be done, man.